Welcome, everybody, to the War and Peace Baseball Podcast, Fantasy Baseball Podcast. This is episode 14. I'm here today with Ray Estrada and Alex Rudy. I'm Alex Uwe. And how are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. There's not much going on. It's kind of the we're settling down after the exciting trade deadline earlier this week. We get to see a few players making debuts with their new teams. We'll talk about those, and we'll also talk about a few call-ups that have been making a name for themselves in the big league so far. And we'll go through a couple other things as well, but I think a good place to start would be talking about the young guys. We love talking about the young players on this podcast. We'll start with a couple of the big names here. Rafael Devers has been up for a little while with the Red Sox, and he's doing quite well so far. Let's just start with him. What do you guys think of Rafael Devers? What do you think about his prospects for playing time? Is Eduardo Nunez going to be a problem anyway with that? How do you think his role plays out the rest of the way here?
I think for right now, Devers is going to get playing time simply because Pedroia is in the DL and Nunez will be playing second base a lot. Granted, he didn't play last night, but I think it'll be interesting to see once Pedroia does come back if Devers' playing time is going to suffer because of Nunez there. And Nunez has been producing, so it's not like you can't. It's not like you can sit Nunez down. But Devers has held his own pretty much, so I think it'll be a wait and see kind of situation.
I think that one thing that really helps Devers' playing time is the fact that Nunez can play so many positions, and they can really shift him around, even occasionally DH him. So as long as they're both productive and they're both hitting, I think the Red Sox can find ways to both get him playing time. But I mean, if Devers starts slumping, I wouldn't be too surprised if they send him back down. Just because now that they have Nunez, they don't desperately need to force him. But I've been extremely impressed for such a young guy to be hitting as well as he has been so far in his young major league career.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to let him ride it out. I mean, it's been 28 at-bats, so obviously a lot can change. But so far, so good. A couple homers, insane batting average, got like a 1,200 OPS. And I like what Nunez offers them. He's kind of their Brock Holt right now, even though I think they do have Brock Holt back right now, but clearly not the all-star caliber that he was, last year or 2 years ago? So the Red Sox, I think, are in good shape in that front. I like Eduardo Nunez a lot still. He was really valuable with the Giants and kind of lost in that losing team there. One of the few players that were really valuable from that team from a fantasy perspective. And even more so now, I think. Better ballpark, American League has a better chance to get more at-bats. I don't know. I like it a lot for him. Let's talk about a couple other guys. Ahmed Rosario also got the call. Finally, he has been the Mets have been teasing his name all year. And we finally get to see him. He's an interesting case because Asdrubal Cabrera seemed as good as gone, but he's still there. And Rosario is going to... I'm not exactly sure how they're doing this. I thought it was going to be as easy as, Asdrubal's gone and then Ahmed Rosario takes over at shortstop full time. And I imagine he will play shortstop most of the time. It's interesting to me. What do you guys think about that situation there? Either of you?
To be honest, I haven't gotten a great look at Rosario. I've just seen a couple of the highlights. He had his triple today. I think he had a home run yesterday in Colorado. But I'm not too familiar with him exactly. I know he's a highly rated prospect, but I have to confess kind of ignorance on this one.
Okay.
I would just say
didn't play yesterday either.
I thought he hit one.
He seems like a really big dude for a shortstop. 6'2", 189 pounds.
He's pretty lanky, actually. He's kind of skinny.
Oh, okay, the highlight I saw was pretty big in, so maybe that was just the
jersey. The jersey. He's wearing.
I don't know.
He's wearing a jersey that's too big for him.
His AAA stats were pretty dominant, but no statistic is lights out impressive to me. Just been like an all around skilled hitter, and I mean, this is an interesting situation for him to be in. He's not really in a super a stacked lineup, but also not one with no protection. It's not like he has to completely fend for himself. So fantasy-wise, there's no reason he can't succeed there. I honestly like Ray. I don't know. I haven't really heard much about his actual skills. Like, do you know off the top of your head what his like traits, like surefire bets traits are supposed to be? Is he
with Rosario? Yeah, he's a speed guy first and foremost. Speed and batting average guy. He doesn't hit for a lot of power, but that shouldn't hinder his fantasy value too much. Even though everybody's hitting for power nowadays, Rosario is going to get you a lot of stolen bases if you can get on base. The runs scored might not come as easily. He doesn't seem to be hitting at the top of the lineup so far. That might change depending on how the Mets decide to play things going forward. And he has been playing shortstop, and Strubal's been playing third base. So I don't know what's going on there. I guess Wilmer Flores hasn't been playing recently.
Pretty interesting how middle infield went from by far the weakest fantasy position to, you can make the case that shortstop just by itself is maybe one of the strongest. So, and when you combine it together, it's just this new wave of fantasy young shortstops is really taking the league by storm. It feels like every couple weeks now, some team calls up another superstar shortstop or second base prospect or third base prospect even.
Yeah, and I think the thing to keep in mind is that most people have jumped on him. Most owners have jumped on him and picked him up in their fantasy leagues. And I don't know that he's a guy you have to slot in right away at your middle infield spot. Obviously, if you needed a guy, he's going to slot in right away. But I think his value is still pretty high, considering he hasn't had too much time yet. And if you can move him, that would be a good time to do so. And I think if and when he moves up to the top of the lineup, that'll be the time to really get some value out of him down the stretch. Because, there's still some decent middle order bats. They still have Cespedes. They still have Jay Bruce, who's playing first base now, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Curtis Granderson's still there. It's amazing how the Mets have held on to basically all of their position players and not made a lot of noise on that front during the trade deadline. So I think Rosario is a good option, and any way you crack it, he's a speed guy. Everybody loves speed. And yeah, I think a guy who's similar in profile would be Ozzie Albies of the Braves, who was just called up as well. And he's the one who hit his first homer today, actually. I do know that for sure. And him and Swanson were supposed to tear it up, but now Swanson's sent down. Albies is at second base, and Brandon Phillips, oddly enough, is slid over to third base. The Braves are doing some wacky stuff over there. I don't know if you've looked at a lineup card for the Braves recently, but do either of you? I guess the research department is lacking in this episode. Do you guys have any thoughts on Ozzie Albies? He's a top prospect.
I think it'll be intriguing when you talk about Devers with playing time. Albies, the only thing I've seen of him was that home run. It was against the Dodgers. He looks solid. He was dirty, so he's obviously. You can't fault the guy for playing hard, but playing second base. Phillips moved over to third, which I think he is completely capable of doing. And the Freddie Freeman experiment is over there. I must have missed it, but what happened to Matt Adams with the Braves? But I think it looks like they're going to try to get him playing time, and he's obviously worthy of a call-up, and so I think he'll be a guy to keep an eye on.
He's a high-speed, high-average guy, similar to Rosario. I wouldn't say he's quite that talented, but there's no reason he can't be productive. If you need steals, if you need high batting average, he should be that down the line. I don't know if he's like a once-in-a-lifetime superstar type of guy, but, already, home run today, definitely a great start. And there's no reason that, he won't get playing time long term there, especially with Swanson back in the minors. At least they've shown, considering how much Swanson struggled before, they finally said, okay, enough is enough, that the Braves have a relatively long leash with their guys, if not an infinite one. So
infinite.
I don't think he's a guy like Moncada or who's gonna maybe actually help you make a push with his production. Not that Moncada's done so great to start off with, but just pure talent wise, I don't know if he's a guy who right away is going to just be lights out. But long term, looking off to next season and dynasty leagues, I mean, he's a pretty safe bet to be a productive middle infielder, I would say, at least to some effect.
Yeah, and that's the common theme here with these young call-ups is, aside from Devers, is they're a good source of stolen bases for the most part. With these guys, they're not going to hit right away necessarily. They're not going to hit at the top of the lineup right away in most cases. They're going to have to earn their way up there, and, if they do, great. That's a great thing for you in these last couple of months. But even if you can extract, 5-10 stolen bases down the stretch, is super valuable because it's such a small pool at this point, especially if you're playing, head-to-head leagues and, your roto leagues. It's a big deal. So, I also thought I'd share with you tonight's Braves lineup. It went Inciarte in center field, Phillips at third base, Freeman at first base, Tyler Flowers at catcher batting cleanup, Nick Markakis in right field. Congratulations on 2,000 hits, by the way. Not a valuable fantasy option, really, but great baseball player all around. Johan Camargo played shortstop today and hit after him. Sean Rodriguez played left field. Ozzy Albies played second base. And then the pitcher slot. And Adams did pinch hit today. Actually, they have two different Adams on their roster who did pinch hit today. Who's this other guy? It is Lane Adams. So they had Lane Adams and Matt Adams pinch hit for the same position slot today. Bet you didn't know that. You guys don't seem.
I did not know.
You guys don't seem shocked at all. Okay.
I didn't know that, but what I will say, you meant just going through the lineup. Flowers is having a very good year under the radar for a catcher.
I would say the thing
obviously
that hurts him fantasy-wise is that he platoons significantly.
I think the other half of his platoon is arguably the better fantasy-valued catcher at this point.
Also true.
Kurt Suzuki has been homering every other day. I don't know if you guys have been keeping track of that, but Kurt Suzuki is actually hitting homers. He's up to 12 now on the season, so I don't think anybody would have guessed that one. Kurt Suzuki was one of the first players I saw use that axe handle bat. That was interesting. I don't think he's still doing that, but have you seen what I'm talking about? The bat that has the axe grip that's kind of it's thinner, but I don't know how to describe it. If you've never
I know what you're talking about because one of the guys in our team at UCSD had it, and it was a very awkward feel.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if you'd seen that at all, Rudy, but it was a thing. I don't know if
no,
it's
I
still a
shouldn't.
thing.
I should search it up.
Apparently,
uses
apparently it's not. Does he really?
Yeah.
Wow, I would not have guessed that either. I was gonna say apparently it's not a thing that's stuck around, but maybe it will be. We'll see.
Mookie Betts is an axe handle guy.
That's gonna be a serious piece of of analysis to look at. You're gonna be looking at axe handle hitters versus non-axe handle hitters and see how they square up against each other.
How does it feel on your guys' swings and hands? You guys weren't fans?
Awkward.
I thought it was fine. I think the
not
point
being
is
used to it. I think
helps
it's not being used to it
because of that. The way it is for a grip, obviously, when you swing an axe, it's horizontal. I think it encourages you to keep your plane longer. Just it's harder to grip straight up and down that same way. I don't know. You got to get used to it though. Either way. Sadly, it doesn't really help you win your fantasy league at this point, but maybe someday it will. Maybe someday your league will come down to whether or not you have enough axe grip players on your team or not. So keep an eye out for that, I suppose. Yeah, so those are the position player call-ups. There's a couple pitchers that I wanted to touch on as well. One of them is Lucas Sims for the Braves also, who made his first major league start against the Dodgers and held his ground decently well. Do either of you guys have the line on him for that game? If not, I can get it in a moment. But, what do you think about his outlook going forward? Obviously, the Braves are still, kind of trying to play considerably well. So, they have a decent lineup behind him. What do you think about his prospects? Rudy, what do you think particularly? I know you picked him up in one league.
I mean, I don't think he's a guy. It's so tough for these guys who are getting called up in August. Not all of them are going to be for fantasy. Like this is really the slim pickings where you're really just trying to make either long-term moves in dynasty or just get every inch of fantasy production possible that you can get. And I picked him in a dynasty league because I am nowhere near. Even though I'm in third place, I'm nowhere near leading, close to winning the league, as you can attest to. And I'm just trying to look to the future. And often in those formats, you have to get these guys as quickly as they pop up. 3 earned runs to the Dodgers is pretty solid. He only had 3 strikeouts, though. That's not particularly
no
impressive.
Walks, though.
No walks, though. It's pretty nice. He wasn't anything lights out in the minor leagues, but his strikeout to like ERA wise and WHIP wise, but his strikeout to walk rate was outstanding. 132 strikeouts to 36 walks, 150 innings in AAA is about as good in that way as you can get, I would say. Former first round pick, 21st overall. The Braves haven't had incredible success with promoting their pitchers. Really developing their starting pitchers lately. Newcomb has been pretty mediocre to be.
He's been bad. He's been bad lately.
Yeah, I was gonna say mediocre, trying to give him a break, but he's not been particularly effective. And Aaron Blair, who was that other piece they got along with Swanson and Inciarte in that Shelby Miller deal, has been pretty bad whenever he's thrown. And then even going back to Julio Teheran, who's just seemingly gone worse every year he's been in the majors. So, development-wise, when it comes to just that club, they haven't been very impressive with, they're kind of like Orioles light, it seems like, with turning their young pitching talent into something productive, especially fantasy-wise. But if you're in a dynasty league and you have acquisitions left long-term, I think he's worth taking a flyer on. And if you are in single season, I would say you should probably only pick him up in an NL format. I would say like Luke Weaver's pretty similar case. I know.
I think Luke Weaver's better than. I would rather have Luke Weaver than.
I would just say in terms of fantasy production and Weaver's probably going to get sent back to the minors once Adam Wainwright comes back. But Weaver's probably a little bit more talented. But I think those guys just in pure single season are kind of in the same boat where I really think, unless you're in a very, very deep league, if you're not dynasty, you have to probably be in NL only format and really desperate for pitching help because these guys just don't have locked enough down roles, and they're really more 2018 guys than they are 2017 guys.
Brent Suter seems like a similar guy, not a strikeout guy who can maybe run out some quality starts for you.
Yeah, I mean Sims will get the strikeouts, but
is he a good strikeout pitcher in the minors to your knowledge, or?
Like I said earlier, he had 136 Ks to like 30 walks in AAA.
That's the control is a nice touch that most
and that was like in 115 innings, so like that's pretty effective. But I mean, I would say strikeouts. You never really know because like I remember Dan Straley was like set records after records in the minor leagues for his strikeout abilities, and like that obviously didn't translate. So I don't always really count like minor league strikeout rates super. As the word of God, because all those leagues are different with their batting talent, and you really never know what's going to translate completely, especially with pitchers.
Yeah, I don't like him. I don't like Braves pitchers in general. They have to pitch at SunTrust, which is a really good park for lefties.
That's also very true.
So they don't have any really intriguing pitchers, in my opinion, right now.
But he's a flyer. I mean, there is a chance that he turns out to be very effective, I would say.
Newcomb walked 7 batters today. Man, that's brutal. Anyway, that's the Braves pitcher that we wanted to talk about, and there's also another guy for the D-backs that is up right now, and that's Anthony Banda, one of their top pitching prospects. Apparently, he made a start last week and basically went completely under the radar because I had no idea who he was. I'll admit that when it happens. But apparently he is going to be starting again this week. I think he's getting the Friday start in this series against... Who are they pitching? Who are they playing? Is it the Cubs series still? No, the Cubs are done with that. The Diamondbacks are playing the Giants. So I think he's starting in place of Walker is what I heard on Saturday. Or no, that might be wrong, actually. Wait, now I'm confused. Let me see which day he's starting here. I want to get this right. He's starting Friday, and not in place of Walker. I guess Walker's starting on Saturday. But Anthony Banda is going to start against Madison Bumgarner. Good luck, buddy. But it is at AT&T Park, so I do like the prospects of that game in particular. I don't know much about him going forward, though. I can't imagine you guys have any insight on him.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah,
as expected. I honestly did not either. In his first start, he didn't fare so well. He got the loss, gave up 4 runs in 5 2/3. Could have been worse, but he got 5 Ks in that game against the who did he play against that game? I have no idea, actually. Wait, who did the Diamondbacks play last week? Well, this is a very dynamic podcast, I will say, as we're getting these numbers to you on the fly. I think it was against the Braves, maybe. Anyway, that is not important. The important thing is we're telling you about players that you probably never heard of, which is, if nothing else, something that you should keep in mind. That's half the battle. That's half the battle, really. I learn new things, too. I learn about players. I think we're probably due for another round of real player or not, because I could definitely dig up some names that are on 25-man rosters right now that you probably have never heard of. So, maybe next time we'll get one of those games going. It'll give you some incentive to take a look at some box scores and look at some of the pinch hitters that have been making their way onto lineup cards. I don't know. It's a really, really big sport. 30 teams with 25 players apiece. Can't keep them all in your head. So yeah, good thing they don't all matter for fantasy baseball. That's what I can say. So let's talk about a couple pitchers that are making new starts with their new teams. First of which was Sonny Gray, made a start with the Yankees today against Corey Kluber, sadly. So Corey Kluber really shut everything down. Complete game against the Yankees. But Gray looked good. I don't know, did you see any of the game today, either of you? I watched a little part of it.
I watched some of it, mainly just to watch Gray.
Yeah.
Because the Yankees were not hitting anything from Kluber.
I was pleased with what I saw from Gray, though.
Yeah, he wasn't very wild. He was a little ineffective with the control today. But I think one thing that I really like for him at Yankee Stadium is that he doesn't give up a ton of home runs, which only 13.1% home run to fly ball rate, which is he's only given up 8 on the season, which is I think the biggest thing as a starting pitcher to avoid in Yankee Stadium, and he only gave up 2 earned, like you said, even though 4 total. And at the very end, those 2 earned were because he couldn't get a third out in the 6th inning. He walked a batter and then gave up a double to Young Gomes. But I think he'll get a lot. He should get the wins now finally to support him. And I think going forward, as long as he's on the Yankees, I mean, I see no reason why he can't be rise back to where he was 2 years ago, as long as he stays healthy, because the AL East is a pretty hard pitcher's division, but it's not impossible to be effective in it, as Severino and Sale have shown this year, and many pitchers have shown previously. And I think he's a guy who, to me, it feels like a change of scenery. Being in a winning culture, there's no reason I can't help him. And as long as he just keeps batters away from that right field porch, which I have confidence he will, he should be pretty effective.
Yeah, and I think that Gray, along with Darvish in this regard, really don't change much in terms of their fantasy value. They have track records. We kind of know what they are at this point. We have a grip for their stuff and what they normally produce. And I think, changing ballparks, changing teams will fluctuate a few things. A few more wins coming that way, a few more balls going out of the park to, the different ballpark dimensions, whatever. For the most part, these are pretty established pitchers. I don't have any concerns about either of them. What do you think about Darvish, who is making his first start Friday? What do you think about him in that game, Ray?
I'm excited for Darvish because the thing is, he had some rough starts coming in. it may have been because he was on the trade block, and that you never know how that affects guys. But the big thing was he was tipping pitches, and someone pointed out to him, not directly.
Either, though.
No, there was looking like, I mean,
I didn't see any solid case made that he was tipping pitches.
Either way, though, I feel like he's gonna be fine. He's at least working on stuff. I don't think he's become as bad as his last 3 or 4 starts.
I don't think he's gonna give up 10 earned runs every game the rest of the year either.
No, I think it's a small adjustment whether it is tipping pitches or not. But I don't see what there is to be nervous about, because I mean we have a huge division lead. We have a huge lead in the National League in general. So I think it's something to be excited about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Dodgers fans are excited. I mean, what are they gonna bring out the, pitchforks and torches if he gives up 4 earned runs in 5 innings? They might. I can't speak for you, but I think that seems like a Dodger fan type thing to do. So, I think Darvish is going to be fine. And whatever he does in this next start, I wouldn't overreact. Who do they have this weekend in that matchup for Darvish?
DeGrom.
The Mets. That's going to be a good one. Is Chase Utley going to
play? I don't want to get started on that. He's probably going to appear sometime in the series. I don't want to get started on that debate again.
Yes. Too bad it's not in New York.
It is in New York.
Oh, it is in New York. So I'm ready for the boos to rain down on Utley then.
They already happened, haven't they? He's played there.
Every at bat the rest of his career in that stadium will be full of boos, I'm sure.
I think even if that play didn't happen, he was still a former Philly. I don't think he was going to get the warmest reception anyways.
That's a good point. I think he's done more than enough damage to the Mets in his career. Another guy who doesn't matter anymore. Hooray. We'll talk about a few more guys that do matter. We'll talk about Jonathan Lucroy, who also is settled in with his new team in Colorado. Got his first hit today, I believe. And nothing short of a disappointing season for Lucroy. So, if anything can turn a slumping bat on its head, it can be Coors Field. And I think Lucroy's track record of being a good line drive contact type of hitter will actually help him in this type of ballpark. I think that's something that people kind of get mixed up too. It's not just the home runs that skyrocket at Coors Field. It's just a much better hitting environment. It's a huge ballpark, and the ball stays up in the air longer. It's just a good place for a hitter like Lucroy as well. Obviously you see a guy like DJ LeMahieu's doing what he's doing at a much better success rate than Lucroy, but they're similar profile types of hitters. Do you have any hope for Lucroy to really find himself again in this new team?
I mean, I think there's always hope in baseball. I think it's really a sport where it's very hard to ever count anyone out until they're retired, injured, or dead, just because there's always so many. There's just so much randomness and unpredictability that always happens. I think we talked about earlier. Tyler Flowers is a great example of just baseball being baseball, especially at catcher, which is why I brought him up. But I mean, there's no doubt Lucroy's been horrendous this year, and I can't be juxtaposed or put into really any context except for the truth, defensively and offensively, and it's a pretty stunning decline. But if he was going to go to anywhere and that needed a catcher and be in any better, there's really no better environment for him to go to. It's a pretty fucking good lineup, pretty great ballpark for hitters, like you've mentioned. And I mean, if he's going to revitalize his career offensively, this is probably his best case for this year. But fantasy catching is always such a difficult thing to come by for production. So I think if you're an prospective owner who isn't really getting anything out of their current catcher, he definitely is worth looking at. But I don't think he's ever going to return to what he once was, which is when he was one of the few guys, along with Buster Posey, who were such good hitters that it didn't even matter that they were catchers. They were just
That was last
great
year.
offensive
It was
yeah.
as recent as last year, which is the craziest part.
I think the Rangers that's going to end up looking at as one of the worst trades in recent memory, and I can't blame them at all for it because I really haven't seen a guy decline on both sides of the plate this superbly in such a short amount of time without any major injuries that I can think off the top of my head. I'm sure there's examples, but it's pretty rare to see a guy just totally lose it like this, I would say.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, but I just wanted to mention, the backup catcher in Texas that's taken over now, and that's Robinson Chirinos, is also a compelling case. I mean, he has 12 home runs on the year, not much more to contribute other than that. But 12 homers is 12 homers as a catcher, so he is doing something right this year. I mean, 12 homers is already his second most he's had in his career. That's Chirinos, who's been playing for a few years now. So I think I can't say that I'd rather have Chirinos than Lucroy, but I would also give him a quick glance. Did you have anything else to say about Lucroy before we move on?
I'm just gonna some interesting context. Last September 23rd, when I was bored in class, I did a top 10 catchers list, and I ranked Lucroy 4th.
Behind just two, I might ask.
Behind Molina, Perez, and Posey.
Okay,
in descending order.
Yeah, and that's just
you can imagine,
that has nothing to do with fantasy offensive production. That's just
not
catchers.
But I mean, but just for the context of how bad he's been overall this year, let alone just the fantasy aspect on the offensive side. Just some context I thought I might give.
Mm-hmm. Last year in September, I had three top catchers. The first one was Gary Sanchez, and so were the next two. So that's all I had to say about that. So
Sanchez didn't make the list, so
well, nobody likes you anyway. Gary Sanchez doesn't approve of that.
Harsh. I don't care what Gary Sanchez thinks.
I think everybody cares what Gary Sanchez thinks. That was a little bit harsh. I'm sorry. I'm sure Gary Sanchez didn't mean it. Let's go ahead and move on here. Let's talk about, real quick, I'm going to go ahead and share with you a few new closer situations you may or may not be aware of. One of which is Shane Green, taken over in Detroit after they traded away Alex Wilson. So Shane Green has been given the green light in the 9th inning, so he will be getting saved.
Justin Wilson.
Yes. Right? Who's
and Alex Avila.
No, but who's Alex Wilson? Alex Wilson's a guy.
That might be a name.
It is a guy. He's a relief pitcher, I think, too. That might be a name. So there's also Brad Ziegler is going to get save chances in Miami. They traded away AJ Ramos, and Kyle Bearclaw's injured, so Ziegler is taking over the 9th right now. And Arodys Vizcaíno for the Braves is getting some save opportunities. Jim Johnson's reign looks like it's coming to an end. He's kind of been, on the fence there. Vizcaíno's getting saves, and he's definitely a much better strikeout pitcher than Johnson, I'd say. So keep my eyes open there. And I think that's pretty much it for the main stories we wanted to cover from the trade deadline anyway. Let's talk about a few players not our new segment. This is not a new segment. Let's talk about a few players in our segment here to stay or keep away. The first one I will bring up is Jonathan Schoop, that's all-star Jonathan Schoop to us now, actually, who has continued to play as such. He has actually been producing really well. I think he's number 21 on the play rater among all hitters for the whole season. So Jonathan Schoop has been a guy who I think every other time I've asked you guys to give your opinions on him would say this is just a hot streak. He's not this good of a hitter. Has that changed at all in your minds? Because we've definitely had some discussions before, but I'm starting to change my mind a little bit about Jonathan Schoop. Are you guys?
I don't think I ever had that opinion of Jonathan Schoop as whenever it came up, he was a hot streak. I think I don't know why not entirely sure why he got overlooked, but I've always thought he was a very decent player. I never thought of him as like a main guy in fantasy necessarily, but certainly in deep leagues or he can be very solid.
I mean, I would say the reason I think he got overlooked was because his rookie season he was just downright dreadful offensively, and he's always had power, but he's never come close to hitting at this average. I think that's really been the biggest key is him raising his average, and he's also, I mean, he's almost doubled his power. He had 25 home runs last year for his career average. So I always had, I mean, that was his career high. So he always had some pop, but his pop is really expanded this year. I mean, he already has, he'll probably beat all his career highs in home runs, runs and RBIs within a week or two, with still 50 games to play, over 50 games to play. And his BABIP is honestly nothing particularly lucky. So, I mean, he might be just a guy he's only 25 years old, about to be 26, and by the end of the season, who just finally, put it all together after some years in the developing the majors. You don't really see that many guys these days, I feel like, where just every year they progressively just get certainly better, and then bam, they're an all-star caliber player. Where this, era where it's kind of very hyper and rushed, where it's just out of the gate, stick him to the fire and see how he does. But that was not my best metaphor or expression. But
just stick him in the fire and see how he cooks.
And I mean, I see no reason to really expect him to slow down. The only thing is that his ISO power is pretty damn high compared to his career averages, but everything isn't like out of line. This isn't a Yonder Alonso who's like suspiciously just kicking ass in every category.
Suspiciously kicking ass. I like it.
This is just kind of seems like I mean, Alonso slowed down quite a bit, so this team is more just like productive improvement, and I think he probably just stole Manny Machado's powers, most likely. But at least for the rest of the season, I don't see any reason why he won't be another top 20-ish type player. It's a pretty interesting guy. You just don't see many Jonathan Scopes, I feel like, in the major leagues this day, where 1 second they're like an average fantasy option at best, to them being top 2 possibly draft pick, top second round, late second, early third round draft pick. So suddenly when it's not like he wasn't around for a while. Just a pretty rare example. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and his full name is actually Jonathan Rufino Jesus Scope. And he's the brother of Charlene Scope. So, there's that. I don't know if that does anything for you, but I've got that information as well. I agree with you on pretty much every front there. Nothing seems too outlandish. His StatCast averages for the season are actually about as close to the MLB average as I could even imagine. So, that's nothing too concerning there. It's not like he's obliterating the ball, though. And I just to kind of put into the scope of things how good he's been compared to other players this year. Thank you. He's been better on ESPN's Player Rater. That's for standard leagues this season. He's been better than Anthony Rendon, Ryan Zimmerman, Cody Bellinger, Mike Trout, Carlos Correa, Jake Lamb, Brett Gardner, Anthony Rizzo. These are a lot of really good names that he's ahead of here. So, Corey Seager, Chris Bryant, he's ahead of them this year in terms of fantasy value, which is, it's not all set in stone. This is how good these players are. I mean, Trey Turner is still the 16th most valuable player in fantasy baseball, even though he's been out for how long now, and he's, I don't know. It's a little bit ridiculous in that front, but stolen bases are magical, basically, and Scope is doing that with virtually no contributions from steals, which is surprising, really. That's most of the players who make these types of jumps are guys that really pour it on in the stolen base category. Scope's got 0 stolen bases this year, so he's doing it with the bat and the bat alone. So it's good to see. Another guy we'll talk about here. This guy does get it done with the wheels. That's Manuel Margot, who has been loving fatherhood so far. He has been tearing it up ever since he got back from his paternity leave. So I see no reason to expect anything less than what we thought he was going to be before the season. A guy who will hit for a decent batting average, score a lot of runs for really not that good of a team, and steal a lot of bases. So are your opinions of him about the same as that, or do you have any significant differences on Margot?
I mean, he was always a top-rated prospect, I'm pretty sure, for the Padres, I believe so.
Yes.
He was on the Red Sox, actually, originally.
He was part of the
he came in the
Kimbrel deal.
So, 22 years old, about to be 23 in end of September. So, super young guy. I know we are in this world where 20-year-olds are considered the super young guys, like Devers, who just come in and hit 400 right away. But that's unfortunately not normal. Even though it recently like it will be. But is there any reason he's only played 74 games this year? Has he been hurt or back in the minors?
He's been hurt.
Okay, but regardless, he really does, like you say, feel like a speed guy to me. Nothing outlandishly effective in his stats from a fantasy standpoint. Just a little bit of everything. I feel like maybe like an AJ Pollock type guy might be
be really good.
his ceiling. His ceiling, I would say, production-wise. I don't know if he'll ever be that good, but that's kind of the guy you'd be hoping you'd be getting, where he hits around 300, gets you around 30 steals, and maybe he's probably, I think, best case scenario, he's a 320, 30 guy, but that's like pretty fucking good. But he's a long way to go. But in dynasty formats, definitely could take the flyer on him. He strikes out a lot, though. That's the only thing, and does not walk at all. So if you're in a league that is pretty big on those two categories, he is going to be hard to justify at the moment because he just isn't above, super above average in anything yet. But he's a potential speedster guy. Maybe he could be anywhere between BJ Upton and
ew, gross, BJ
Pollock, but it just depends what he does.
Yeah.
I assume you're talking like later career BJ Upton, because BJ Upton was solid.
Yeah,
Margot could be a solid.
I just meant like
dynasty format. No, I know what you're talking about.
Like his floor might be like a BJ Upton career.
Yeah, and I think he kind of seems Lorenzo Cain like to me.
That's another.
He plays really. I think he's got really dynamic athleticism, and he'll play good defense, and his good hand-eye coordination skills. Not really going to hit for a lot of power. Might develop a little bit. The stolen bases are going to be there, but I think there's no real change in my opinion of him since the beginning of the season. That's a good thing. It's a good thing in his case. Speaking of young players, I think Ozzie Albies, who we mentioned earlier, is the first player that was born in 1997 to play in the big leagues.
We're running out of time, guys, to make it.
That's the year you were born, right, Rudy?
I was born in 97, yeah.
So how you feeling about that?
I still like my chances.
I think, yeah, I mean...
When it's the last guy born in 97 to make the major leagues, then I'll start checking my watch.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I really do wonder how long that'll take for that to happen. Yeah, we were recently discussing the players that were left from the 90s, and then we started thinking who could potentially be the last player to have played in the 2000s decade. That's something that's crazy to even think of, but it's getting closer than I would like, I think. So yeah, anyway, that's all I got for that. We do have one more player I'd like to discuss really quickly, and that would be Irvin Santana, who twirled another complete game today. I find it hilarious that, first of all, he was not traded at the trade deadline. Like, pretty much everybody thought he would be. I thought the moment Jaime Garcia was traded, I thought it was certain that Santana was going to find a new team. But no, he's still with the Twins, and he's still pitching well for the most part. When he gets hit hard, but he doesn't always get hit. So it feels like him and Jason Vargas are, kind of. I don't know. They're practicing the blood magic, the sacrificial practices.
The Cardinals baby magic.
Cardinals baby magic, yeah, that's the same one. So I don't know. What do you think about Santana?
I would say this: he was actually arguably better last year, which I don't know. No one's really brought up, which is pretty interesting. I didn't even realize it myself, but in essentially every category, he was actually, except for wins and losses, he was a better pitcher last year, basically. Better, slightly worse, you're right, but way better FIP, better home run to fly ball rate, better ground ball percentage.
That is really bizarre.
His BABIP was actually worse last year, and his K through 9 was better, and his walk rate was better, and his home run through 9 was better. He was a better player. He was better.
What?
Without a doubt.
I mean, that makes sense that a player would be better,
So I think he might have just really flew under the radar, and that the Twins are just a team he's always been meant to be on, because
it might be the fact that pitching is just so bad this year in general
I
that
think
he looks really good. Maybe?
Yeah, I think everyone thought he was a fluke last year, which is fair because he's had a pretty fucking bizarre career. He's always been the guy who was good one year and then terrible the next. He was the San Francisco Giants of players. I would say you can make the case, and you don't really expect 34-year-olds to have career seasons as pitchers, especially. But I mean, nothing has stopped him so far. But I really have to be honest, his FIP is disgusting. It's inexplicable that he's been this effective with a 4.81 FIP and a 4.83 xFIP. That's just like nothing else I've ever seen.
So what do you think he's still kind of hovering in the top 40 range?
It's like inexplainable because I think what you brought up is a great point because he throws like great starts or terrible starts. He doesn't really have like consistent production, and in fantasy it's like really difficult.
So it's a lot of matchups homework.
To me he seems like I haven't done the research to see like how the starts are against specific offenses, but I feel like a matchup guy to me. I think it's a big reason why no one traded for him because he has another year on his deal. Actually, he has 2 more options. He has actually 2 more years. He is next year, and it looks like an option of vesting or somewhere around there. So I think that contract is really why he didn't get traded. People didn't want to deal with that when the advanced statistics aren't really complimentary of him. I honestly would trade him probably in fantasy still because I'm sure there's plenty of leagues where people don't really look that deeply into it, and you can convince someone that Ervin Santana just suddenly became a quality number 2 in his mid-30s and get more
but like who else in that tier is even would you trade for at this point? I'm just really lost for.
I think it has to. I really just depend league to league, like what people think is a fair deal for him. Like it's kind of I don't really know like where people value him. I mean, what would you guys? I guess you can just looking like in one of our leagues.
Well, would you rather have him or Jeremy Hellickson, who's pitching for Baltimore now?
I would definitely rather have him because Jeremy Hellickson's just been bad this year. Like, straight up.
Okay, what about him or a guy like Zach Godley, who's pitching really well in his younger
I would definitely take Zach Godley, but that also is like my dynasty bias. I only played dynasty, so...
I guess. But I don't know too much about Godley, but I think his FIP he's in a similar situation where his FIP is not
I don't think it's that bad, though.
No, I think...
I mean, if someone offered me, like, Alex Wood for him, I would definitely do that.
No, I don't think anybody's offering Alex Wood for Ervin Santana. I think that's just not reasonable.
I would probably take Carlos Carrasco going the rest of the season over him, even though Carrasco didn't pitch very well his last start.
These comps are not, I'm just going to say right now, are not
What's a fair comparison?
I think those guys are discernibly in the next tier up. I view Santana as a borderline... Yeah, Nova might be a guy. Like, borderline top 40 guys. I think I still have Nova ahead of him. I would not trade Nova away for Santana, personally, but that's a more realistic trade scenario that you can see.
How about Jake Arrieta? So that would be the classic buy low, sell high combination trade. So one guy would be going...
Again, I don't think anybody's going to trade Jake Arrieta away for Ervin Santana at this point. I think I just don't see that still. Arrieta's still a better strikeout pitcher, and there's just I know he hasn't
Danny
been
Duffy.
great, but Danny Duffy is the same kind of thing. I think people like these guys that touch that
Well, I think
tier
this is
more.
what you're telling me then. You're telling me he has basically no trade value. He's not worth
No,
trading.
not for guys like that, but there's other guys.
But those
that
are where he is in fantasy production. I hate to tell you, like that's what his fantasy production is. So
Yeah,
I think
and
then he's.
I think it's
I
very
think he's a guy
strangely-
to stay away from. I think that's what you were telling me. Stay away from
but I
Herman
think
Santana.
that's kind of been the sentiment the entire season is okay. Stay. I don't want to be holding the bag when he finally kicks it.
I'm just looking at his recent starts. So he threw great against San Diego. At San Diego, that means nothing. Threw mediocre against the Dodgers. So threw terrible against Detroit. Fine against Houston. Probably got lucky. It looks like. Well against the Angels. That's a decent offense. Poor against Kansas City. Really well against Cleveland. Blech against the White Sox. Poor against Seattle. Well against the Giants at AT&T Park. So
Yeah.
his past, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 starts. That's not very impressive. I know he has 2 9-inning complete games with 2 runs, but if in between that is just junk. So I think he's the best streaming option in the history of fantasy baseball. I guess you can make the case.
I guess. And the thing is, you're not wrong about that. He on the player rater this season for standard leagues, he is, he's higher than all the guys that you've mentioned. And I think a lot of it has to do with his
that's why I brought them up.
unbelievable. I think part of that is just how unbelievable he was in the first month and a half of the season, where he wasn't
100%.
giving up any runs. Let me look, like last 30 days, for instance. He's not in
His
that,
fantasy
that
stats
tier.
are really inflated. I think
Yeah.
is the best way to. They're very inflated.
But I think he's kind of hovering around the top 40 range for me, but I still don't put him anywhere near guys like Arrieta, Duffy, guys who, when they're on, can realistically reach that top 20, the edge of the top 20 tier, which is a significant jump from there. I think I would put him in the same kind of range as guys like Alex Cobb, JC Ramirez. Who else did I think of here that might be in a similar range? It's hard to say at this point. Michael Wacha, maybe. Just I know the age disparity, like dynasty leagues, you'd never say that about him, but just
Michael Wacha is probably the reverse this season. He started off horrible.
Lance Lynn is a guy who I think is in a similar case. I would rather Jimmy Nelson I have above him still. I'm just listing off guys that feel close to that tier at this point. But in general, I'm not high on Ervin Santana at all. The CG doesn't do anything for me in particular either. If you can get him for the right matchup, absolutely do it. It'll pay off. He pitched that against the Padres. I think it's worth mentioning too. So I think that's about it. We'll give you a quick look at the weekend preview. Also, a few series to keep your eyes on. Obviously, the Nationals and Cubs are probably going to be the teams you want to watch. That is probably the biggest series going on this weekend. What did the matchups look like in that series? I do wonder. Roark and Hendricks are going toe-to-toe. Lackey's going on Saturday. I do think Strasburg's coming back in this series. Is he not? And Lester on Sunday. Either way, the Nationals have some things to figure out. Max Scherzer left his last start really early with some weird issue. I don't even know. Something with his neck. Yeah,
Stiff neck.
Is just a stiff neck. Yeah, I don't know.
He said he slept on it wrong, but I mean there is concern with his mechanics that it could be an issue. But as far as we know right now, he's going to see a chiropractor I think tomorrow.
Yeah, so he's not going to start this
Friday.
weekend, I would imagine.
No, he's not. I mean, he pitched? It was Tuesday that happened.
Tuesday, Tuesday or Monday.
Wednesday. Yeah, so
it wasn't yesterday. Or was
yeah,
it? I don't know.
It was. I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday. If it's anything more serious, or if it's just.
Yeah. Well, either way, I think that series is going to be a good one to watch. Obviously the offense of these teams is what I want to see the most of the the pitching is what it is. It's nothing super impressive in my opinion. The Yankees and Indians are going at it this weekend. They played today. They're going to have a 4-game set. Jaime Garcia is going to make his Yankees debut on Friday. And the Indians are going to run out Bauer, Salazar, and Carrasco. I do want to see how Carrasco bounces back off that off start. He's not been pitching like himself, which is kind of disappointing. He's one of the better pitchers out there, I would say. And Seattle and Kansas City might be an interesting one to watch just in terms of the wild card race, because Kansas City is pushing for the division even, and they're in the wild card, and the Mariners at 500 right now trying to make a wild card push. I'm really excited to see Paxton pitch again. Paxton's been fantastic. He was the pitcher of the month. Good for him. He's pitching Friday, and they will run out Hernandez Saturday against Duffy. And on Sunday, they will be going with recently acquired Erasmo Ramirez and Ian Kennedy. Erasmo Ramirez, really, come on. That guy is the definition of a batting practice pitcher. But whatever you want to do, Mariners, whatever you want to do. Okay, that is going to
Wasn't he already on the Mariners, or did I make that up?
I think
No, he was in the C-Check trade.
Yeah, he was on the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Oh.
Years ago? I don't
Possibly?
think so. That might have been...
Like, I'm pretty sure they traded him to the Rays.
That would be interesting. Maybe.
I
don't know. How easy would that be to find out right now? Let's see.
Yeah, I was right. They traded him in 2015. I knew I didn't make that up.
Aha. You are not crazy.
Pretty bizarre.
All right. Well, you win that one. I did not know that. And you
Thanks. I tried.
Good job. All right, that is going to do it for our fantasy podcast today. As always, we really appreciate any feedback you do have for us, and we'd really like you to ask any questions you have, and we will answer them here on the podcast. So if you've got questions or feedback, you can tweet us at WPB_podcast, or you can comment on iTunes or YouTube, wherever you're listening to this. And I also recommend you check out our website. The link for that is down below, and you will be able to see all of our podcasts as well as articles that we've been working on. We're trying to turn out a few a week, so there will actually be some good stuff to read there, so please check it out if you got a chance. So, yeah, thanks again for joining us, everybody. As always, Rude.
Peace.